So your boy has been playing a bunch of ranked armored core PvP, and needless to say, I now hate my life. But thankfully we did not walk away empty-handed. I have a bunch of knowledge of which I'm going to share with you guys. I made it all the way to the A rank. I don't think I actually want to progress any further because past this point is just going to be a bunch of just meta builds and people exploiting the game as much as possible just to guarantee the victory, which honestly is fine. I don't have a problem with that. Just me personally, that's not good for my health, so I'm not going to continue to do that. But for today, we're going to be going over the top 10 best weapons for ranked PvP. Now, there's a few things to keep in mind. One, looking at the weapons individually doesn't really mean much. It's more about weapon composition and how it pairs with other types of builds. But we are going to get into actually what type of builds is going to be good with these specific types of weapons. And another thing, the meta is actually going to be different from rank to rank. So stuff that actually might work very well in the C and D rank is probably not going to work later on in the A or S rank. So I'm just going to go over the stuff that I find to be the most consistently good throughout all the ranks. And obviously this list is going to be based on my own personal experiences. Some other people might have a different type of list. We can discuss that into the comments. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's get started. Now, starting off at number 10, we have the VVC 700 laser drone. Now, this is a back unit of which obviously is a drone, tracks towards a target, shoots out a bunch of these lasers that do some very nice damage very quickly. And you can actually fully charge this thing as well to just make him shoot at beefed up lasers, but they actually shoot at less amounts in total. Now, both uncharged or charged is still perfectly fine because the drone actually tracks really well. You do a really solid amount of damage and some good impact. But the best thing about having a drone is that you can just use it like behind cover and the drone will just end up just tracking towards the enemy that way. Also has like an extremely quick lock time to where you don't even have to wait for it at all. And being that the lasers all come out in different directions, it's going to be very hard to dodge, especially against more slower types of ACs. Against more mobile ones, it's going to be pretty hard to hit, of which you probably just have to get a stagger via like the poise break, maybe a shock stagger or a kick to try and really make those lasers hit. Because if you do, the laser damage is absolutely ridiculous. And if you time it correctly, you can just combo in your own guns while you're shooting out the lasers as well. It's just really good. At number 9, we have the VP61 Pulse Shield. Now, yes, this is going to be a shield, not a weapon, and this thing is only equipable on your left back unit, but I consider this one to be the best pulse shield in the game because it has the best cooldown, and you get a good mixture of damage mitigation and impact dampening compared to the rest of the other pulse shields. And it does also have that rectangle shape for a shield where other ones kind of have like smaller shapes. I'm not sure if it makes a difference. The deployment range stat is the exact same. I'm not sure if it's actually any different, but it looks like it does make a difference. But shields in this meta are extremely good because obviously you're just taking less damage and probably more importantly, taking less impact. So obviously this type of shield, you would use it with builds that you don't really need to utilize many different types of weapons, whether it be like a shotgun build, maybe like those rat builds where you're flying up in the sky just shooting a bunch of missiles. It works very nicely there as well, but definitely paired alongside the correct weapons, it definitely makes for a very obnoxious build. Number 8, we have the AURORA Light Wave Cannon. Now, this is another back unit of which is going to be one of the better, longer range weapons in the game because it has such very aggressive tracking. And it has like solid stats in terms of its impact, damage, and direct hit adjustment. But I definitely like to pair this alongside a tank build when you're trying to hit rats that are flying up in the sky. Or if you're actually a rat yourself that's flying in the sky and just hitting people down below, works nicely like that as well. But even at close range, it actually can still do some decent damage. Now, probably the only downside is that it doesn't really do as much impact as missiles do. But I feel like this one actually is more consistent in terms of hitting enemies at longer distances. And this thing also just gets higher direct hit adjustment compared to some of the other missiles. And when you pair this alongside the correct generator and the correct FCS, you actually get some very quick lock times and some very quick cooldowns. Number 7, we have the VP66 EG Stun Gun. Now, this bad boy is my favorite weapon in the entire game. I use this throughout the majority of my rank experience. And the main reason being is that it's just incredibly fun. I just love spamming the triggers. It makes you feel very skillful, even though it doesn't really require that much skill. But just seeing enemies just take a bunch of damage from a little gun is always so satisfying because it does some shock build up very quickly. And when you end up proccing the shock effect, I think it does a flat 1200 damage. Now, obviously pairing it alongside a second stun gun is going to be the best play in just having a bunch of just shock damage all over the place. And probably the most underrated thing about this gun is the fact that it has extremely high direct hit adjustment. If you end up getting the stagger, you're going to do amazing damage and you guarantee basically an entire magazine worth of damage, which is definitely going to proc shock on top of that. So you just end up doing like half a health bar almost every single time, which is really good. Now, the major downside is that yes, it has very little range and it doesn't really get much impact. So very rarely is it actually going to outplay things like shotguns or vientos at that same distance. But if you're skillful enough and actually pair it alongside the correct back weapons, you actually might be able to outplay some people. Number 6, we have the Majestic Bazooka, and I kind of want to talk about the Javelin Alpha Detonating Bazooka as well. Both of them are probably just as good as one another. I probably prefer the Majestic Bazooka a little bit more due to the fact that it's lighter and actually gets a bit more damage, but the Detonating Bazooka actually gets higher direct hit adjustment and a bit more impact. But the good thing about having a bazooka in general is that it's just a regular arm weapon that does amazing impact. which normally high impact weapons will just end up being on your back units. So you can just end up freeing up your back unit weapons to just be whatever you want to, really. And bazookas don't even have that slow of a projectile as well. So even against like some more mobile enemies, if you're close enough, you actually can hit more times than not. But yes, against enemies that are far away and are moving very quickly, you're just never going to hit with this thing because obviously there is no tracking. But pairing this bad boy alongside a tank type build and just bum rushing enemies, whack them in the face, make them take a bunch of stagger damage, it's just very fun and powerful. At number 5, I want to talk about 2 different missile launchers that are equipped on your arm unit. The regular missile launcher, the HML G2 MLT 04s, whatever you want to call them. And we have the PF-AU66D Pulse missile launcher. Now, this is actually the new one, but both of these actually do work very similar in the fact that actually shoot out these multiple missiles, actually has some very solid tracking. They go pretty far, do some okay damage. But the best part about them probably is going to be the fact that they're extremely light and they have a very quick lock time. Both of them have less than a 0.5 second lock time, which means that you can actually keep spamming it. It tracks very well. And both of these weapons pair very nicely with like a rat type build where you're flying up in the sky away from enemies. Just having either of these missile launchers is going to be really good. Now, the Pulse missile launcher actually might be better with that certain type of build because it actually has a faster projectile and you actually can shoot out multiple projectiles before having to reload. Now, the way that the projectiles actually shoot out with a Pulse missile launcher makes it very hard to actually hit at point blank range, but when you actually have it fully charged, it actually shoots out in a flat line. But I feel like the regular missile launcher has some more variety in terms of what builds you can pair it alongside with because it gets more impacts, gets more damage, and it just works more consistently at closer ranges as well. But both of these are very solid. Number 4, I want to talk about all of the laser cannons, all of them, because they're just all amazing. Now, depending on which build that you have is going to be dependent on which one you actually do select. The 60 LCS is going to be the lighter one, so obviously with lighter types of builds. The new 60 LCB is just a slightly heavier version that just does more damage, so if you can equip this one, I recommend that you do. And the 60 LCA is the big triple beam, is definitely going to be for your tank type builds because they're extremely heavy. But the reason why all of these are amazing is because it gets some really good damage, some nice impact, you can fire it quickly, the projectile actually travels pretty fast, and you can actually fire these multiple times before it actually overheats as well. But probably the best thing about them is probably their charge attack. The charge attack just makes it do even more damage, even more impact, and the projectile travels faster. And in this game with the lag, it's just gonna be borderline impossible to try and dodge this shit sometimes. Doesn't matter if you're spamming dodge. More times than not, you're probably gonna get hit with it depending on how far away you are. But these things are just so incredibly easy to use, and you can actually pair them alongside any type of build as well. Doesn't matter what legs you have, doesn't matter what your arms are. Just throwing them on the back unit is just going to benefit. They're just that good. Number 3, the Zimmerman shotgun. Yes, it has been nerfed, but yes, it is in fact still very good. The damage is still good, the impact is still great, direct hit adjustment is still there, it still only takes 2 seconds to reload, and it's a shotgun, so therefore the projectile is just instant. It's going to be very hard to dodge. Now yes, it actually is going to take a little bit more skill than what it used to because it is going to involve you having to bum rush your enemy a lot harder, especially now the fact that we have some faster quad legs and a bunch of the tracking missiles actually have been buffed. So there's a lot of builds out there of people just like running away and flying in the sky, to which the Zimmermans is not going to have a great time. So when using the Zimmermans, you definitely have to pair it alongside a very solid assault boosting type of build, and you're definitely going to have to combo in your kicks to make the most out of it. There's to constantly stagger enemies and guarantee your follow-up attacks. For me, the playstyle isn't the most fun. I didn't really use the shotguns much in rank because I'm sick of having to like constantly chase enemies. I'd definitely much rather have something that has a little bit more range. But yes, the Zimmermans are still good. Number 2, we have the VIENTO needle gun. Now this bad boy does so much impact, it's not even funny. You're gonna just have a couple of these bad boys on, just hit somebody a few times, and depending on how much stability they have, you could probably stagger them in one magazine. And for a rate of fire of 4.0, that's pretty stupid. Now yes, the major downsides is that the range isn't there, and you only get 5 in the mag, but you only do get a 2-second reload time. And the impact damage you can get with this is just that good that it's just worth it. You could definitely stagger anything within 2 magazines if you hit all your shots, which is definitely very doable because the projectile travels very quickly. And also it's extremely light, so you can pair it alongside many different types of builds. Just travel very quickly, close the gap, get a few hits off of this, and then switch to your direct hit damaging weapon, whether it be like a blade or a laser cannon, doesn't matter what it is. This definitely makes for one of the better arm units in the entire game. Now for number 1, I'm gonna kind of cop out and just pick like melee weapons in general. I can just have like 5 or 6 different melee weapons just make it onto the list, but it would look kind of stupid in a top 10. But the reason why they're so good is because they just do a lot of damage, and every single time that you get a stagger, they're just guaranteed to just do that much damage. Now, the most popular ones out there probably end up being the laser dagger and the laser slicer. They have nice range, they're very quick, and they have a very long combo that's basically guaranteed every single time that you do stagger an enemy. And you could definitely do half an AC's health bar in just one combo. Now, the pile bunker can actually do it just as well, if not even better, but that one's a bit more risky because it has less range. And the chainsaw can probably just do it better than all of them, but that one is actually a lot heavier. Now, the major downsides to this is that 1, you have to be at closer range, and it actually is very easily countered with extensions, whether you use assault armor or pulse armor. But if you can actually manage to stagger an enemy enemy twice throughout a fight, then it's basically a GG. Now another melee weapon I actually want to throw out there is going to be the plasma thrower, the hammer. This one is actually not used the exact same way that you would use the other ones for direct hit damage, but this is definitely going to be the best melee weapon to pair alongside those flying missile type builds. When enemies get close to you, you can actually just use the hammer because it actually just throws out a big giant whip, actually goes pretty fast, staggers enemies, and does some really solid damage. But yeah, melee weapons in general are just amazing. It is a bit of a cop out to put it at number 1 because it covers such a wide variety. But anyway, that is pretty much it. That is the entire video. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. Definitely like and subscribe, and do follow me on Twitch because I actually am live there every single day. And yeah, see you guys in the next one. Bye.